Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be doing Parachutes by Balance and Composure, which is a 2013 release off their album, The Things We Think We're Missing. One of my favorites, actually. All the engineering and production was done by Will Yip. This song's of a really different time. I remember 2013 being an era where CDs were still on their way out, but weren't all the way dead yet. So people were still mastering as loud as they could. This is pre-loudness normalization. Spotify was just kind of coming in. And so if you push something louder on CD, it sounded better than the rest of the records just because it was louder. Very interesting hearing this engineering in today's world with today's sound, today's speakers, and today's ears, because comparatively to modern music, this song has just about no low end and very little clarity. It's very much that post-hardcore, early 2010s wall of sound style of mixing. I mean, even compared to other songs that were coming out in that genre, I gave it a check. I listened to some A Day to Remember and Sleeping with Sirens, some other bands in a similar pocket. This song is even harsh by those standards, which is fascinating. Stylistically, the song sounds the way it does and is so harsh on the ears because it was of a time where that wall of sound, pure loudness, engineering was so prevalent, whereas other records from the time that maybe didn't push so hard still sound good today, even if they are a little harsh. What's really cool about the track and this album on the whole is there's all of these layers of guitar feedback, ambient noises, all of this shoegaze, washed out noise. And in the album that this is on, this helps everything transition seamlessly and adds so much atmosphere. And I guess something to keep in mind here on the engineering side is when you are playing with a bunch of reverb and very washed out sounds and also pushing for so much loudness, it can make the listen quite harsh. It's cool to have a very loud, very push record when stuff is dry and not super washed out, like a lot of hip hop or punk. But when you've got something that is super washed out and then super distorted, you've just got all of this feedback that creates so much harshness on the ears, which is kind of what we're hearing when we listen to this song these days. But to be complimentary for a second, I think that the harshness, the wall of sound, the super forward drums and distorted guitars and screamed vocals all make for such an energetic intro to the album. This is track 1. And maybe if you were to dial back the harshness on all of these guitars and drums and maybe dial back some of the heavy reverb and processing and loudness in the mastering, the song might not have the impact that it currently has and the impact on the place of the album that it has. But yeah, I encourage you, if you're hearing this song or this album, take a listen to it in the context of a modern mixed album. I listened to it next to A$AP Rocky's new track, and the difference was astounding. So key takeaways are always shoot for the best sounding music. Get your tracks as great as they can possibly sound, regardless of the conventions, regardless of the pressures, because some of the artifacts of the loudness war era being listened to in today's Spotify normalization and today's subs and today's ear for acoustics and sound, this mastering doesn't hold up as well in the modern sphere, regardless of how awesome it sounds on its own. This is a beautiful song off a beautiful album. The band's next record that came after this was far more polished sounding in the mixing and far more modern. Very interesting to hear this on its own. There's so much I could say that I love about this album and this song and this band. Kind of interesting that this mix review turned out to be as critical as it is, but I'm a huge fan. The band has since broken up, so I hope all of the individual members are doing well in their solo efforts. This has been Audiology, and I'll see you again next time.